I told you that in 2025, anyone can make coffee that's around 90% as good as what the top coffee shops are serving, and you won't need expensive gear or years of training? I really believe this is the case today, and that's why I think coffee is finally on easy mode. In this video, I'll show you exactly how to do it with just three key elements that have completely transformed home coffee brewing for coffee geeks all over the world. So, this is really good news because when I first got into coffee around 15 years ago, making a really good cup was difficult. First, equipment was really expensive, and secondly, there just wasn't much knowledge out there. No clear techniques, no optimization strategies, and no real kind of guidance on what mattered most. So I spent years doing things that really didn't move the needle. And when I sometimes bought freshly roasted coffee, I could sense that aroma. It was really outstanding, but somehow I just couldn't get the same flavor into the cup. But that's not the case anymore. Now it's a lot easier. You can kind of compare it how to back in the day. If you wanted to get somewhere new, you had to be this master at reading maps, figuring out all these small symbols and calculating distances and planning your route. But now you just punch in an address and your phone tells you exactly how to get there. What used to be super complicated has been broken down into simple steps that anyone can follow. The mystery is pretty much gone, and that's a good thing. So, the first key element we have to talk about is something that has confused a lot of people, and that's the brewer. And no, you don't need an expensive espresso machine. Instead, I highly recommend the Hario Switch. This one here. It's not only very tasty when it's done right, it's also an incredibly forgiving method. To get started, you don't necessarily need a gooseneck kettle, and there are plenty of solid techniques you can follow without getting overwhelmed. I have two techniques here on the channel. One is my own switch recipe. It's a two-pour method that so many of the viewers here on the channel, they've told me they got really good results with that one. The other recipe is from the 2022 world champion Sherry Sue, who I made a video with last year. And she also has a very tasty and super easy technique for the switch. So I'd say the switch is simple to get started with, but at the same time, it's not boring. I'll link both techniques down below. Next, let's talk about the second key to tasty coffee, and that is grinders. We're living in a golden age of affordable grinders. We've seen an explosion in recent years, especially among manual grinders. A solid entry-level choice is the Timemore C2 or the Kim Grinder P2. Both are at that level around 50, 60, 70 US dollars. Well, depending on the time you're watching this, maybe there will be a lot of new tariffs. So it's probably a good idea to move fast if you want the best deal. But the price level of grinders today is just really crazy. If you go back a decade ago, you had to spend a lot more money to get the same kind of grind quality. If you have room in the budget, you could also get something a little bit nicer, like this one here, the Marvo Fantox Pro, or go a little bit higher, like the Espresso K Ultra. The K Ultra is actually a grinder that is used by world champions. In fact, Sherry uses the K Ultra in our Switch video. So if you want to brew like a world champion, grinders are surprisingly affordable now. Before I tell you about the third and last piece of the puzzle, let's just briefly talk about the coffee beans themselves. Of course, you do need high quality coffee beans, but I actually think coffee is very democratic compared to something like wine. Let's say you buy a bag of coffee, which is around 250 grams most places. That's not going to be too expensive. You can make 4 liters of really super delicious coffee out of that bag. Imagine if you had to buy 4 liters of some of the best wine in the world. A wine bottle is not quite 1 liter. I think the standard is probably 750 milliliters. So you'd probably have to get 6 bottles. That would be at least 10 or maybe even 100 times more expensive compared to a bag of specialty coffee. So I think coffee is actually very accessible in the sense that you can sit right now and then just buy a little bit of gear online and some premium coffee, and then you'll be at a very high level. Finally, let's talk about the third key, and that's the water. Water has been one of the most puzzling aspects of coffee for a long time, but we now finally understand exactly how different minerals affect the flavors and how to optimize them for the best results. I know diving into water chemistry can feel a little bit overwhelming. Trust me, I've been there. And that's why I've created a step-by-step training program that cuts through all the science lingo and makes coffee water super simple to understand. If you're curious to learn more, then check out the link down below. But here's a quick tip to get you started. For most pour-over coffee or something like the Hario Switch, you will want soft water with a TDS between 40 to 90 ppm. And actually, in most places in the world, local coffee geeks they will usually have a specific water that is kind of the standard go-to. For instance, in the US, Icelandic Glacial is popular, and in other parts of the world, you have other types. So I've actually crowdsourced a list from my followers where they share their preferred coffee in different countries all over the world. So if you want to check your specific location, then you can look down in the description box, then I'll add them there. So if you just get these three things right, a good grinder, a good brewing method with a simple technique, and you also have the right kind of water suited for pour over, then you'll be making coffee that's around 90% as good as what the coffee pros are serving. Of course, you can go much deeper into the craft, but this is really the 80-20 principle of coffee. If you do plan on getting deeper into this hobby, then be warned that it can get quite complicated and there are many rabbit holes to get lost in. So that is why I've made this video here, which explains everything I wish I'd known when I got started in coffee. So if you want to quickly avoid a lot of misunderstandings, then that's a good place to start. That's it for today. I'll see you in another coffee video very soon.